Hello and welcome in to the PHLY Eagles podcast, backup bowl, NFC East clinching division game. And of course, we're brought to you by our friends over at Miller Lite. Get Miller Lite delivered right to your door. Head to MillerLite.com/PHLYBirds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer. Fran, Zach Berman's going to be joining us momentarily from Lincoln Financial Field, but it is the backup bowl. Cooper Rush versus Kenny Pickett with the NFC East on the line today.
Yeah, obviously, look, the storylines abound on both sides from that standpoint. No CeeDee Lamb for Dallas, so a lot of injuries here on both sidelines. But for me, the way I look at this game, just 50,000-foot view, I think this is a bounce-back opportunity for the Eagles on both sides of the ball, Jamie. Obviously, defensively was not their best effort last week. It wasn't a terrible game against an explosive offense with the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels, but certainly not to the standard they've set.
Sure.
And then from a run game standpoint, it was a non-factor in the final three quarters of that game when they needed it most, when you needed to lean on Saquon Barkley in that rushing attack. The offensive line and the tight ends really let them down against a front that they should have been able to take advantage of. I think that's the case here in this game. Dallas, by every metric, is probably the worst run defense in football, man. So to me, this is a great opportunity here for Saquon Barkley to get going. I expect a big day from the Eagles rushing attack, even with Kenny Pickett under center.
Yeah, old double gloves Pickett today. We'll see. Look, I think what's the key to this game, Fran, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the Cowboys' red zone defense allows touchdowns nearly 75% of the time. I think it's as simple today as if the Eagles can convert field goals into touchdowns inside that red zone, it's game over.
Yeah, I will hear from Zach in a little bit. I think he's got some insight into what the Eagles' thought process is from a pass game standpoint, strategically with Kenny Pickett, what we can expect to see there with Pickett getting the ball to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and the rest of the pass catchers. But for me, you're going to get some, I would imagine you're going to get some inconsistencies there. It should still be better than what it was a week ago. Obviously, he was still nursing that rib injury, but he was a full go in practice on Thursday. So you would expect that he's going to be ready to go here from a mental standpoint going into this game.
Yeah, and it is pretty cool. As much as I hated on Kenny Pickett last week, he can't allow them to make them a one-dimensional team today. He has to challenge something in the throwing lane. But for a kid that grew up to be an Eagles fan, to be putting on a Kelly Green jersey at Lincoln Financial Field, he's probably going to have like 100 friends and family there with a chance to win the division. That's a pretty cool freaking moment.
No question. A guy that grew up very close to our co-host, Vinny Curry, just the next township over. So a great opportunity for him here in this game, something that you don't get too often.
Yeah. So Bo is going to be joining us for the second half watch-along post-game. Vinny will be in as well. We're going to talk to Zach in a little bit here. But Cooper Rush seems to be playing pretty good football, except when he plays the Eagles. They seem to have his number a little bit here. What are you expecting from Cooper Rush today? And then we'll get into the Eagles defensive line. Bryce Huff might make a return.
Yeah.
Nakobe Dean injury we'll talk about. But Cooper Rush been playing pretty good ball, but the Eagles seem to have his number.
Yeah, I would say the skinny on Cooper Rush is that he's not a A-plus physical talent. He's not going to wow you with his arm strength. He's a moonball thrower. That ball's going to hit some of the lights in the upper deck there when you see him trying to attack vertically down the field. The question now becomes, are you able to rattle him early? Because he does a nice job of making throws under pressure. There will be defenders bearing down, and he has no conscience in that way. He'll stand in the pocket and deliver. But if you can hit him, if you can do a nice job of kind of getting to him early, he will step away from throws. His mechanics can kind of deteriorate. So I think if the Eagles pass rush can get to him early, and then certainly it comes down to stopping the run game. If you're able to keep them from staying on schedule, we talked about that a couple weeks ago against Carolina, what Chuba Hubbard was able to do against this Eagles defense. And it wasn't, oh, wow, they're getting gashed for 7, 8, 9 yards a pop. It was more 3 and 4 yards in a cloud of dust. And then Bryce Young on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 is much more effective as opposed to when it's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10. And so I think that's the formula here for the Eagles in this game. Go back to something that has worked for them for the majority of this year. Stop the run on early downs. And then you're not going to let Cooper Rush beat you, especially without CeeDee Lamb.
I was just going to say, his security blanket, one of the best receivers in the NFL, who was having – look, the Cowboys have not quit. You know, they have performed really well over the last 6-7 weeks here for Mike McCarthy. And CeeDee Lamb, took it up a level.
Yeah.
And that security blanket is gone today. That might That might be the biggest injury. I mean, Jalen Hurts is obviously huge,
Sure.
but no CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys is a huge blow.
Yeah, I mean, he is the funnel for that pass game. That's what they want to be able to try to funnel the offense through him from that standpoint, from the passing attack. You don't have him; he can make plays inside or outside. They were doing all kinds of creative things with him. Now the run game has been a little bit better. It's a little bit better than what it was back in Week 10 when these two teams played. They're putting Kevontae Turpin, who's really explosive. They're putting him in the backfield a little bit, and they're getting better, more efficient from Rico Dowdle. So he's going to be the primary ball carrier between the 20s. He's probably one of the, bottom 5 least talented starters in football right now. He's not a guy that you're going to be impressed with from a height, weight, speed standpoint, but he's been efficient. That offensive line is starting to gel together. They're creating some movement at the point of attack. They benched their first-round pick, Tyler Guyton, last week. He didn't play for the first quarter and change. We'll see what that looks like here in this game, if that's something that they stick with. But I think ultimately, again, the talent wins out here in the Eagles' favor. I don't anticipate being this one being that difficult of a football game.
So defensively today, you mentioned, uncharacteristic, and it certainly was. I think in the 10 weeks prior, they had allowed over 20 points 0 times and then allowed 22 points to the Commanders in the fourth quarter. We'll pick up on this question, but I want to get to Zach because he's down at the LINC. But that certainly was a very uncharacteristic second half.
No doubt.
But let's welcome him in. I don't like to waste his time. Bo might, but I don't, Zach. I respect your time. There he is from Lincoln Financial Field, Mr. Zach Berman. What's up, Zach?
Hey, doing great. Good to see you guys.
You as well. So, Zach, we were just talking about some of the injuries today. We can kind of go through the inactives with you, but obviously Jalen Hurts, we all know. Kenny Pickett with a really cool opportunity to win the division for his hometown team that he grew up rooting for. But Nakobe Dean, CeeDee Lamb, we were just talking about a lot of injuries in this one.
Yeah, the lineup is going to be interesting to monitor. Obviously, we know about Pickett. I'll get to that in a bit. Let's start with the linebacker situation. You'll see Oren Burks out there next, obviously, to Zack Baun. Zack Baun's been wearing the green dot in practice this week. He wore it in Washington last week when Nakobe went out. Oren Burks has 15 starts in 7 NFL seasons, played in the Super Bowl, right? So he brings experience to that group. Obviously, Nakobe Dean's been playing at a high level. Burks has been with the team throughout the offseason, was banged up in training camp, but got meaningful work in camp as well. So look, I'm not saying you'll get Nakobe Dean's production out there, but obviously Oren Burks is not a roster hopeful. He's someone who's been in this league, has played meaningful snaps. As far as Kenny Pickett, it's a great narrative, as you said. I've been to Ocean Township, New Jersey. I've been to his high school, Ocean High School. I've been to Gianni's, his local sub shop where he got the chicken vodka wrap.
Chicken vodka wrap. That sounds good.
That's his favorite meal here. He grew up an Eagles fan, and how many Eagles fans, around our age kind of grew up thinking you have a chance in Kelly Green against the Dallas Cowboys late December in Philadelphia to clinch the NFC East. It's an awesome story. So the football part of it aside, just from a storyline perspective, it's pretty cool to monitor this today.
Zach, I know you dropped some hints late in the week here on the show about how you envision this passing game being executed here with some more high percentage throws. Would you be able to shed some more light into how you envision them going about things from a pass game standpoint in this game?
Sure. Dallas' secondary is really banged up. They're down to their 4th outside corner starting today. When you look at the players on IR, so there's going to be opportunities for the Eagles. Now, with Kenny Pickett, you're not getting the big arm downfield. But I think what they can do is those quick timing patterns to AJ to Devontae, really the opposite side of Bland. So wherever Bland is, you go to the other side. That's the weak spot in the Cowboys corner, in the Cowboys secondary. I think the Eagles can exploit that. So I know the conventional thinking is Jalen Hurts isn't out here, run. I think the Eagles are going to have the opportunity to move the ball through the air. And I think I would not dismiss it just because it's a backup quarterback. The passing game might look different. As I said, it might be a quick passing game, might be more timing based, but it wouldn't surprise me if they really try to pick on this Cowboys secondary.
So, Zach, one of the other things besides the backup quarterback is Saquon Barkley is 268 yards away from an NFL record. Eric Dickerson does not want him to get it. How much do you think it's being valued in the building? Is this something you think here in these last two games? Because depending on what happens today affects next week and yada, yada, yada. Do you think they're going to go for it?
Well, I know the offensive line wants it, right? I mean, Saquon, he has said if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I've spoken to Saquon about this on a few occasions. It's getting real now with 2 games out. There's a lot of factors here. I think first off, you have to see how far away he is after today. You have to see what happens in the Eagles game today, what happens in the Lions game, the Vikings game.
Sure.
I don't know yet how the Eagles are going to approach next week. I think if it's too far away, if you're looking at like 130, 140 yards away going into next week, I don't know if that's something that people would push. But if it's within striking distance, like there is precedent here. You think back to 2021. Now, it's not the same gravity of record, but Devontae Smith was going for the Eagles rookie receiving record. Nick Sirianni kept him in the first quarter of that game, a Week 18 game when the Eagles were resting their starters going into the postseason, so Devontae could get that record. Of course, that was within striking distance. That wasn't. It didn't require him to play a full game. So, I think it's a fascinating story. Personally, I want to see him go for it. I think it's cool to cover.
I think he needs 100. I think 150 today, and they go for it.
Yeah, it's history, and I like history, and I know. By the way, Saquon's a student of history.
Sure.
You know, he really follows the running back position, knows all these guys inside out. That's a significant record. So, I mean, I think it'd be a cool story, but I think if the Eagles have nothing to play for next week, and he's far out, you won't see it. But just think how interesting that would be going up against his former team with a chance to set the single season rushing record in the NFL.
Another layer to that, I would imagine, would be the health of Jalen Hurts, right? Because if you're the Eagles, if Jalen Hurts gets out of the protocol early this week, I would imagine so. You would hope that would be the case, that Jalen Hurts would be available to play next week. Do the Eagles want to go into the playoffs with him not having played for 2 3/4 of the last previous 3 games? I know they kind of did that back in 2022, and then he ended up playing in that final week. How do you think that they would envision going through that over the next several days?
It's a great question. I asked Nick Sirianni that very question on Monday. I said, "Do you want to see Jalen get work before the postseason?" Nick said he's not going there. He's focused on Dallas right now. I do know anecdotally that the situation Fran just mentioned, 2022, the Eagles saw a great benefit to Jalen getting work before the postseason. Now, that was a game that the Eagles needed to win to get the number 1 seed. They also had a bye week the following week for Jalen to get healthier. But I do know, speaking to Jalen about that, speaking to coaches about that, they thought it was beneficial in 2022 that he was able to play in Week 18. It's not apples for apples. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves now. We need to see what happens. But it's going to be a fascinating storyline during the next few days, especially if they win today, the Lions win today, and next week's kind of rendered meaningless.
Yeah. Zach, 2 things I'm curious about from your pregame warm-up observations here. One was Jake Elliott practicing any kickoffs, and 2, Bryce Huff. How much was he involved? What do you kind of expect from him today?
Yes, Jake Elliott was kicking the ball off, and I saw that in practice on Thursday.
Yeah.
I saw that in practice on Thursday. I asked Sirianni specifically about that on Friday. Sirianni pleaded confidence, or pledged confidence, I should say, in Braden Mann, but actions speak louder than words. You know, we'll see in about 20 minutes. I'm expecting Jake Elliott to kick off. Now, this isn't quite the same as last week. It's 61 degrees today. You're not dealing with the same conditions that you dealt with last week, but you're absolutely right. If you look for variables in this game, Turpin's a variable that you really want to neutralize in the kicking game. And if you're able to kick it deep in the end zone or out of the end zone, that's beneficial. That hurt the Eagles last week.
Sure.
I was about to say more than it's being made, but a lot was made out of it. But I think that's a different game if Washington is starting their drives inside the 30 as opposed to on the 40. As Fran said on the postgame show last week, they gave him a free first down, and that's challenging for the Eagles defense. So I do think the Eagles will make a switch. I know what Nick Sirianni said on Friday. I think that was more gamesmanship from Sirianni than anything else.
And Bryce Huff, did you see him out there?
Yeah.
What are you expecting out of him today, if much at all?
Yeah, I'm expecting a bit role, a deep reserve role. Frankly, I would probably think it's a comparable role to what you saw from Chuck Harris in recent weeks. I think they'll build up Bryce Huff. Now, I'm not one of these people. I think that was a significant move yesterday. I think Bryce Huff's someone who can help them in the postseason. I think if you disregard the contract and you just say, can he give you meaningful snaps as a reserve edge rusher during this stretch run? I believe he can, and I believe the Eagles need that. The Eagles are thin at that spot. So I'll be monitoring Bryce Huff today, but I'm not anticipating the workload that he had in the first month of the season, which wasn't even a major workload, but he was getting 40% of the snaps then. It would surprise me if he's pushing above 20% today.
Zach, my last question for you actually comes from the chat. Professor Dane is checking in with a question. I think it's an interesting one. Going back to our Jalen Hurts conversation, do we know if he's at the game today? He was apparently not on the field during pregame warmups. I'm not sure what the rules are in terms of a player that's still in the protocol technically with Jalen, if he's allowed on the field during the pregame warmups. But what is the insight you can glean there?
Yeah, good question. He was not on the field during pregame warmups. So I've not seen him yet. I know he was in the building this week. On Tuesday, he presented the gifts of the golf carts to the offensive lineman. He was there. He has not been on the practice field with the team. Maybe he's been there during walkthroughs, but I haven't seen him in person, me personally, since the post-game locker room last week. And he was walking around in sunglasses last week. He was walking around fine. I saw video footage of him this week. But no, I would imagine that I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't know if he's here today. Yeah. Depending on the stage of the concussion protocol that you're in, you are allowed to be on the sideline. But there are certain light sensitivity questions depending on the stage that you're in. So it is a good question. I had my binoculars out for the past hour and 20 minutes, and I did not see Jalen Hurts.
So, Zach, a lot of former Super Bowl champions in the house and an NBA great, Rasheed Wallace. But Malcolm Jenkins, Alshon, Brent Selleck, some big-time former Eagles in the house today for Kelly Green Sunday.
Yeah, Alshon Jeffrey is an honorary captain, so he's here. Spoke to A.J. Brown about Alshon on Friday, and what A.J. said is Alshon paved the way for a guy like him. You have to remember, in 2017, that was a huge acquisition for the Eagles. Yeah. That was the biggest wide receiver acquisition that they had outside of the draft since Terrell Owens. Then Malcolm Jenkins, I saw Malcolm on the sideline. I walked in with Brent Selleck. So yeah, some former, some Super Bowl champions here today. And you mentioned obviously Rasheed Wallace. Look, I
wearing the Chiefs gear,
Philly high school basketball fan. Yeah, Simon Gratz star. Yeah,
I love Rasheed.
UNC can tell you every NBA stop. So I know that fans might not like the Chiefs gear, but he grew up in North Philly, a Chiefs fan, right? So I respect someone who sticks to their loyalties.
All right, Zach, before we let you go, what's your prediction for today's game?
Wait, a few other just real quick,
what else you
notes.
got?
You'll see Ty Davis-Price today as the third running back. He's up today for his Eagles debut. Dallas Gant is the fourth linebacker today. He's making his NFL debut. I would expect him to contribute on special teams today. So those are two newcomers out there. Ian Book is on the 53-man roster, but he's the emergency quarterback. The Eagles made that move yesterday, putting him on the 53, so he didn't have to take a game day spot. I didn't have to take a practice squad elevation. As far as my prediction, look, I know the Eagles have a backup quarterback out there. I simply think the Eagles are the better team. And I think Dallas without CeeDee Lamb is going to have trouble moving the ball. I think the Eagles are going to pass the ball more than fans anticipate. Like I said, I can see this being a big AJ or Devontae game because of the Cowboys' weakness at corner and because of the fact that I really think the Cowboys are going to try to bottle up the run. I don't expect this to be a high-scoring game. Look, the over-under would suggest this is a game played in the teens and 20s. I'm going 23 Eagles, 16 Cowboys.
All right, love it. We will check in with you post-game from down at the LINC. Enjoy the rest of the Kelly Green Sunday, Zach.
Appreciate it, guys. Good talking to you.
See you then.
Zach.
There he is, Mr. Z Berms. All right, a couple other things to get to. One of the things we left off there was the uncharacteristic nature of the defense. Zack Baun with the green dot today.
Yep.
He's actually going to be part of my best bets coming up here shortly. But Nakobe Dean down with the abdominal injury. I know Zack Baun kind of joked about maybe seeing more dime this week out of the defense. Oren Burks, what are you expecting from the shift in linebacker there?
I'm almost giving up on the idea of seeing more dime because I've guessed that, all right, this is going to be the week. This is going to be the week. This is going to be the week. And they haven't gone to it yet.
Well, it's the first time they haven't had the starting linebacker pair all year.
That's fair.
So maybe this is the week you say it with your chest.
Yeah, this could be it. But, I look, at the end of the day, I think that when you look at Zack Baun, you say, all right, you feel good about the impact that he's going to bring. Oren Burks has been a replacement level, high-end backup, low-end starter for the majority of his career, more so with the former. He's been more of a backup, but one game against one of the, especially without CeeDee Lamb, one of the toothless offenses in football, I do think that they'll be fine.
Yeah. Interesting little nugget there that Jake Elliott could be doing kickoffs last week. You do not want to give Turpin the same, fielding position you were giving the Commanders last week.
Just take it at the 30-yard line every time.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our best bets here presented by our friends over at Bet365. You can use promo code PHLY 365 at sign up and get yourself $150 in bonus bets. Bo and I do this every single week. I'll start with mine because I did just mention Zack Baun. I went to the Zack Baun player prop with no Nakobe Dean today. I went to the alternate line of 10 plus tackles and assists. That pays out at plus 130 there. I like Zack Baun to be in double digits today.
Yeah, and I think with the fact that Dallas is going to try and run the ball, I think there will be opportunities there. Zack Baun's one of the leaders in football right now in terms of run stops, playing downhill. That's been his specialty. So yeah, I like that one.
All right, and then I'm going with Saquon. I think if the offensive line wants it, if that means something to those five guys to be the line for the all-time record, I think they're going to go for it a little bit. And I think Saquon's going to get an opportunity today. I think I see in my mind's eye a big chunk play, like a 55 or 60 yarder. And then that kind of eases up the record. So I'm going to go with the alternate line of 130 plus rushing yards. You can get that at plus 155. All right, now Bo's best bets. He has now cowardly retreated from his Grant Calcaterra props weekly because
I don't blame him though.
Yeah, I think it abandoned him 8 weeks in a row. His first one today, I like this. Kenny Pickett under 27.5 passing attempts.
Yeah, it's because he thinks Tanner McKee's going to be jumping into the game. So that's the only reason why.
Does he actually believe that, or is this?
He's got 2 swooper bids on it. So we'll see.
Okay, and then the other one, Saquon Barkley, a favorite of Bo's. The longest rush over 20.5 yards.
I like that one too.
Yeah, I see a big chunk play come today from Saquon.
I mean, look, you look at the Dallas run defense. This is from my notes, which are up on allphly.com. They're 29th in rushing DVOA. They're 32nd in EPA per carry. They're 29th in rush success rate. They're 30th in yards per carry. They're 26th in yards over expected per carry. They're 26th in yards before contact. They're 25th in explosive run rate. They're 31st in run stuff rate. Every single metric you look at with the Cowboys run defense, they are in the bottom 3 or the bottom 5. This is a game where Saquon Barkley, this rushing attack, they should eat.
All right. Love to hear that. Is it the day we get the Quinyon Mitchell interception?
Cooper Rush has done a good job of taking care of the football.
Except versus the Eagles.
Yeah, but so I look at it and I'm like, okay, look, they had 5 turnovers the last time they played against Cooper Rush, but it was still only 1 pick. It was 4 fumbles. He's done a nice job of taking care of the ball. That has not been his bugaboo. But that said, it's like the Grant Calcaterra thing. I've sat here for weeks. I'm like, oh, this is going to be the week. He's going to have opportunities, and it hasn't happened, so maybe this is the week.
Well, let's hope so. Cousin Grace in the chat says, unlike a lot of these fake fans who are rooting against Kenny P to fail, sad, I'm rooting for our small-handed king. Now, I may have had some regrets about going overboard with Kenny Pickett. I do think he's going to have a day.
Yeah, I think the opportunity is there. Zach talked about the injuries in that secondary. Amani Oruwariye is the starting corner opposite of Deron Bland, and he was on injury reserve the last time these two teams played back in Week 10, but he played for a large chunk of the season before that because Bland was on injury reserve, and he was terrible, man. I mean, a former Penn State corner, ton of explosive plays allowed. So I think that there's going to be opportunities here for Pickett, whether he's going up against Devontae Smith or against A.J. Brown, whoever Oruwariye is going up against. I kind of like that matchup, certainly.
All right, before we get out of here, and we're going to be doing a watch along as we sit out in our comfy office there and watch the game. What's your prediction as we get out of here?
I think this one's not close. I think the Eagles win 24-9. Let's go 24-9. I don't think they reach the end zone, Dallas. I think it's a couple field goals from Braden Aubrey. Maybe he kicks like a 65-yarder in the 60-degree weather. But
really nice out. I got the flops on today.
Outside.
Yeah.
It's beautiful out.
It's great.
And of course, it was like still cold this morning when I took the dog out. But when I came back outside after the sun was out, it was beautiful out. So.
I'm with you. I think the Eagles cover the 7.5 point spread. I'm somewhere similar. I'm like 24. I'll give the Cowboys a little bit of credit and say they get to 13.
Okay, there you go.
24-13, Eagles cover the number. But we're going to go outside, watch the game. You can join us, watch along with us. Vinny and Bo will be showing up probably after halftime or around halftime. Zach will be joining us, and then we'll be all live here for the postgame show with the NFC East on the title on the line today. I think we all agree Birds will be hoisting another division title. But thanks to our friends at Miller Lite. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Give us a thumbs up on your way out of here. Tell your friends, family, everybody you know, your neighbors. Subscribe to PHLY here. We appreciate it. We love you. Go Birds. See you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.